If sarcasm could fix marriage, I'd be a love therapist with a yacht. Instead, I'm Grant Taylor, 42 years old, sitting in my rain-soaked Seattle suburb watching my wife Eliza transform into someone I don't recognize. The woman who used to laugh at my jokes now rolls her eyes when I breathe too loudly. "You're so negative, Grant," Eliza said this morning, applying lipstick that cost more than my monthly coffee budget. "Maybe if you weren't such a toxic presence, I wouldn't need to go out so much." Toxic presence. That's what I've become after 15 years of marriage. Not the guy who supported her real estate dreams, not the husband who worked extra hours at the tech PR firm so she could build her empire. Just toxic. The rain hammered against our kitchen window as she grabbed her designer purse. "I'm having dinner with Jenna and Mel tonight." Don't wait up. 3 nights this week. Always Jenna and Mel, her gossipy best friends who treated marriage like a temporary inconvenience. Jenna had been through 2 divorces and Mel was working on her 3rd. Perfect role models for my wife's new lifestyle. "Which restaurant?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Does it matter?" "You'll just find something wrong with it." She paused at the door, studying her reflection in the hallway mirror. "I need space to figure things out, Grant. This marriage feels suffocating." The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with the sound of rain and my growing suspicions. I'd been a journalist before moving into tech PR, and my instincts were screaming that something was off. Eliza's sudden need for space coincided perfectly with her new workout routine, expensive clothes, and mysterious phone calls that ended whenever I entered the room. I opened my laptop and did what any suspicious husband in the digital age would do. I investigated. Eliza's Instagram had transformed from family photos and real estate listings into glamour shots and party pictures. Comments from strangers, likes from men I'd never heard of, and captions about living my best life and finding myself. One name kept appearing, Craig Dalton. Personal trainer, business coach, and according to his profile, Eliza's new wellness partner. His photos screamed midlife crisis, shirtless gym selfies, motivational quotes about unleashing your inner beast, and enough hair product to stock a salon. My phone buzzed with a text from Pete, my former cop buddy who now ran a private security firm. "Beer tonight?" Sarah's visiting her sister. "Eliza's out with the girls again." "Come over." Pete arrived an hour later, shaking rain from his jacket. He took one look at my face and grabbed 2 beers from the fridge. "Okay, what's eating you?" I showed him Eliza's Instagram transformation and Craig's frequent appearances in her comments. Pete studied the photos with professional interest. "This guy's a walking red flag," he said. "Look at this comment thread. He's not exactly subtle." Craig's latest comment on Eliza's gym selfie read, "Absolutely stunning. Our private sessions are really paying off. Can't wait for tomorrow's workout." "Private sessions?" I laughed bitterly. "She told me she was doing group fitness classes." Pete scrolled through more photos. "Grant, I hate to say this, but your wife's acting like she's single. These aren't girls' night photos. This is dating behavior. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the changes in Eliza, the new lingerie, the sudden interest in self-improvement, the way she'd started calling me controlling whenever I asked basic questions about her schedule. Classic gaslighting techniques. By morning, I'd made a decision. If Eliza wanted to act single, I'd help her experience what that really meant. I created a fake Tinder profile using her party photos, the ones where she looked most available and least married. I matched with several of her friends' profiles, including Jenna and Mel. Within hours, the gossip network was buzzing. Screenshots of single Eliza's profile spread through their social circle like wildfire. My phone rang around noon. Eliza's voice was shaking with rage. "What the hell did you do?" "I have no idea what you're talking about," I said calmly. "Someone made a fake profile of me on Tinder. Jenna called me screaming. Everyone thinks I'm cheating." "Are you?" The silence stretched for 10 seconds. "How dare you accuse me of—" I didn't accuse you of anything. I asked a simple question. You're sick, Grant. This is exactly why I need space. You're paranoid and controlling and you didn't answer my question. She hung up. That afternoon, I positioned myself at a coffee shop across from Eliza's real estate office. I didn't have to wait long. At 3:30, Craig's BMW pulled up. He strutted into the building like he owned it, all muscles and confidence. 15 minutes later, they emerged together, Eliza laughing at something he'd whispered in her ear. They walked to his car, and she got in the passenger seat. As they drove away, I followed at a distance, my journalist instincts kicking in. They headed downtown, pulling into the parking garage of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. I parked 3 levels up and watched through the concrete barriers as they walked to the elevator, Craig's hand on the small of Eliza's back, the intimate gesture of a man who'd done this before. My marriage was officially over. Now it was time to decide what I was going to do about it. I sat in that parking garage for 2 hours, rain drumming on the concrete above, planning my next move. Eliza thought she was playing games with a boring, predictable husband. She was about to discover that boring men often make the most dangerous enemies. Chapter 2. The Unraveling. The next morning, I called in sick to work and prepared for surveillance. If Eliza wanted to play games, I'd learn the rules first. I borrowed Pete's unmarked sedan and equipped myself with a digital camera, notebook, and the patience I'd developed during my journalism days. Eliza left the house at 10 a.m. claiming she had client meetings. I followed her straight back to the Fairmont Olympic. This time, I was ready. I'd reserved a room on the same floor using a fake name and cash payment. The hotel's business center provided me with a perfect vantage point of the lobby bar, where Eliza and Craig were having what looked like an intimate conversation over expensive cocktails. I activated my phone's voice recording app and moved to a table within earshot. What I heard made my stomach turn. "Grant's becoming suspicious," Eliza was saying. "Someone created a fake Tinder profile using my photos. He claims he didn't do it, but who else would be that pathetic?" Craig laughed, a sound like fingernails on chalkboard. "Sounds like hubby's getting desperate. Maybe it's time to put him out of his misery. I'm not ready for divorce yet. The prenup isn't in my favor, and I need more time to transfer assets." Eliza sipped her martini. "Besides, this sneaking around is exciting. I feel alive for the first time in years." "I love married women," Craig said, leaning closer. "There's something about corrupting a good wife that really gets me going. You should see the messages I get from desperate housewives. It's like shooting fish in a barrel." My hands clenched around the phone. This wasn't just an affair. It was a game to them. I was entertainment, a boring husband to mock while they planned their next move. "He's so predictable," Eliza continued. "Last night he asked if I was cheating, and I could see how much it hurt him. It was almost satisfying. He's had everything so easy, Grant has. Good job, nice house, devoted wife. Maybe it's time he learned what real problems feel like." Craig's hand moved to her thigh. "Speaking of problems, when are we taking that weekend trip to Portland?" I found the perfect hotel. "This weekend. I'll tell him it's a real estate conference." They finished their drinks and headed toward the elevators. I waited 5 minutes, then followed them to the parking garage. Craig's BMW was parked in a corner spot, perfect for what I had planned. I pulled out my keys and carved "Cheater" across the hood of his precious car. Then I opened the unlocked trunk, who doesn't lock their car in downtown Seattle, and deposited the bag of rotting fish I'd prepared that morning. The smell would take weeks to eliminate. As I was closing the trunk, footsteps echoed through the garage. Craig was walking toward his car, alone, checking his phone. He looked up and saw me standing next to his BMW. "Hey, what are you doing to my car?" I straightened up, no longer caring about stealth. "Just leaving a message for my wife's boyfriend." His face went pale as he saw the scratched hood. "You're insane. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, I said, stepping closer. Tell them how you've been screwing another man's wife. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. Craig was bigger than me, younger, and spent his days at the gym. But I had 15 years of suppressed rage fueling my movements. When he raised his phone to call 911, I slapped it out of his hands. The sound echoed through the concrete space like a gunshot. You want to play games with my marriage? I grabbed his shirt and pushed him against his car. Let's see how you handle a real opponent. Look, man, I didn't know she was married when we started. Liar, I shoved him harder. I heard every word upstairs. You love married women, remember? It's like shooting fish in a barrel. His confident facade cracked. Okay. But she came on to me. I'm just giving her what she wants. What she wants is about to change dramatically. I released him and stepped back. Tell Eliza her fireworks are about to start. And Craig, stay away from my wife, or next time we meet I won't be so gentle. I walked away, leaving him standing next to his vandalized car. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in months, I felt alive. That evening I uploaded screenshots of Eliza's single Tinder profile to several local Facebook groups, including the Real Estate Professionals Network where she'd built her reputation. I added a caption. Anyone know why this married real estate agent is advertising herself as single on dating apps? The response was immediate and brutal. Comments poured in from colleagues, clients, and neighbors. Eliza's carefully crafted professional image began crumbling in real time. My phone rang at 8 p.m. Eliza was screaming before I could say hello. You're destroying my career. Take down those posts right now. I didn't post anything, I said truthfully. Other people are sharing screenshots of your dating profile. Maybe you should ask yourself why that's happening. This is harassment. I'm calling my lawyer. Good idea. While you're at it, ask him about adultery clauses in prenups. I think you'll find the conversation educational. She hung up, but called back 5 minutes later. Grant, please. We can work this out. I made some mistakes, but we can fix this. Some mistakes? You mean the affair? Or the part where you called me pathetic and predictable while planning your weekend getaway with your personal trainer? Another long silence. You were listening to our conversation? I was gathering evidence for the divorce proceedings. Amazing what people say when they think nobody's watching. You recorded us? That's illegal. Actually, it's not. Washington is a one-party consent state, and I was present during the conversation. But thanks for confirming that you knew exactly what you were doing. The next morning brought a new development. Jenna called me directly, which was unusual since she'd always treated me like furniture. Grant, I need to tell you something about Eliza. I'm listening. She's been lying to everyone, not just you. She told us you two were separated, that you were abusive and controlling. She said she was afraid of you. My blood ran cold. And you believed her? At first, but after seeing those Tinder screenshots... Grant, she's been planning this for months. She asked me and Mel to be character witnesses in case she needed them for a divorce. She wanted us to testify that you were unstable. Why are you telling me this now? Because I found out she's been sleeping with my ex-husband too. Craig isn't her only side piece. She's been collecting men like trophies, and she's been using our friendship to cover for her. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. Eliza hadn't just cheated. She'd systematically planned to destroy my reputation while building her exit strategy. Jenna, I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to keep being her friend for a little while longer. Can you do that? Why? Because I'm not done yet, and I'm going to need witnesses for what comes next. Chapter 3. Revenge Engineered. Pete arrived at my house the next morning with coffee and a grim expression. I ran some background checks on your wife's boyfriend. You're not going to like what I found. He spread several printed pages across my kitchen table. Craig Dalton had a history of targeting married women, particularly wealthy ones going through midlife crises. 3 previous relationships had ended in messy divorces, with Craig somehow managing to profit each time. "This guy's a professional homewrecker," Pete said. "Look at this pattern." He targets women in their late 30s, usually successful professionals feeling trapped in their marriages. He poses as a life coach or trainer, builds their confidence, then manipulates them into leaving their husbands. What's his endgame? Money and control. 2 of his previous targets ended up signing over significant assets to business ventures he controlled. When the relationships ended, they were left broke and humiliated. I studied Craig's financial records. So he's not just sleeping with my wife, he's planning to rob her blind. And she's planning to rob you blind first. It's a perfect scam. That afternoon, I put the next phase of my plan into action. Eliza was hosting an open house for a $1 million property in Bellevue, her biggest listing of the year. I arrived early and positioned myself across the street with a clear view of the house. At 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the scheduled start, I walked to the property and began my work. I'd prepared dozens of bright yellow signs reading "For Sale by Cheater" and planted them throughout the front yard. Then I accessed the house's smart speaker system. Eliza had given me the Wi-Fi password months ago and uploaded a playlist of her recorded conversations with Craig. The first potential buyers arrived at 2 p.m. to find the yard covered in accusatory signs and Eliza's voice echoing from inside the house. "Grant's so boring and predictable. I feel alive for the first time in years." Eliza's car screeched into the driveway just as a family was leaving in disgust. She ran toward the house, frantically pulling up signs, while her voice continued broadcasting her infidelity to the neighborhood. "This is exactly why I need space from Grant. He's toxic and controlling and paranoid." By the time she figured out how to disconnect the speakers, half the neighborhood had gathered to watch the spectacle. Someone was filming with their phone. Within hours, the video would be circulating on local social media groups. I watched from my car as Eliza called someone, probably Craig, crying hysterically. The open house was ruined. Her professional reputation was in tatters, and potential buyers were already posting negative reviews online. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. "Holy shit, Grant. What did you do?" I replied, "I gave her the fireworks she wanted." That evening, I received an unexpected call from Eliza's mother, Patricia. She'd never liked me, always thought her daughter had married beneath her station. "Grant, I just saw the most disturbing video online. Is it true that Eliza is having an affair?" "Yes, Patricia. It's true." A long pause. "I'm ashamed of her. This isn't how I raised my daughter. I appreciate you calling. Grant, I want you to know that not everyone in this family supports what she's doing. If you need character witnesses for divorce proceedings, you can count on me." The irony wasn't lost on me. Eliza's plan to isolate me was backfiring spectacularly. The next morning brought news that Craig's gym had received dozens of negative reviews overnight, all mentioning his habit of seducing married clients. Someone had also plastered "I sleep with married women" stickers across his BMW. Not me this time, but I wasn't complaining. Eliza showed up at my office that afternoon, looking haggard and desperate. She'd lost weight, and her usually perfect makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. "Grant, please. This has gone too far. People are threatening my business. People are responding to your behavior, not mine. I'll end it with Craig. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes." I leaned back in my chair, studying the woman I'd once loved. "Do you remember what you said to Craig about me? That I'd had everything so easy, and maybe it was time I learned what real problems felt like?" She flinched. "You weren't supposed to hear that." "But I did. And you know what I learned, Eliza? Real problems bring out people's true nature. Some people crumble under pressure. Others discover they're stronger than they ever imagined." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you wanted to see what I was really capable of. Congratulations. You're about to find out." She left without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. Desperate people make desperate choices, and Eliza was running out of options. That night, Pete called with disturbing news. "Grant, I've been monitoring Craig's social media and financial activity. He's been liquidating assets and making travel arrangements. I think he's planning to disappear." "What about Eliza?" "That's the interesting part. According to my sources, he's been telling other women that his current project is almost complete. He's not planning to take her with him." I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy for my wife. She thought she was playing Craig, but he was playing her. Soon she'd be left with nothing. No husband, no lover, no career, and possibly no money. "Pete, I need you to do something for me. Can you arrange for hotel security footage from the Fairmont Olympic? I want documentation of every meeting between Eliza and Craig. Already on it." "I also found something else you need to see." He sent me a series of bank records showing transfers from Eliza's business account to Craig's various companies. Over the past 3 months, she'd moved nearly $200,000, money that should have been in our joint accounts. "She's been embezzling from our marriage to fund her affair," I said. "It gets worse. Some of that money came from client escrow accounts. If her real estate board finds out, she'll lose her license and face criminal charges." Eliza had made a fatal error. In her eagerness to impress Craig and fund their relationship, she'd crossed legal lines that even I couldn't protect her from. My phone rang. It was Jenna, and she sounded panicked. "Grant, Eliza and Craig are planning something. I heard them talking about getting evidence against you, something about proving you're unstable and dangerous." "What kind of evidence?" "I don't know, but they're meeting tonight at her office. They think if they can make you look like the bad guy, it'll fix everything." I smiled grimly. "Thanks for the warning, Jenna. I think it's time to end this game once and for all." Chapter 4. The Final Play. The charity gala at the Seattle Art Museum was the social event of the season. Eliza had bought tickets months ago, back when we were still pretending to be a happy couple. Now she was attending with Craig as her date, a final insult to our marriage and her own reputation. I arrived alone, wearing my best suit and carrying a small device that Pete had provided. The ballroom was filled with Seattle's elite, tech executives, real estate moguls, and social climbers who thrived on gossip and scandal. Eliza looked stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Craig stood beside her in an ill-fitting tuxedo, his gym-sculpted physique obvious even in formal wear. They were putting on a show of confidence, but I could see the strain in Eliza's smile. I made small talk with colleagues and clients, playing the role of the dignified husband, handling his divorce with grace. Several people offered sympathy, having seen the social media drama unfold over the past week. "Grant, I'm so sorry about everything," said Rebecca Chen, a tech executive whose company I'd done PR work for. "Eliza always seemed so devoted to your marriage." "People change," I replied. "Sometimes we don't really know the people we're closest to." At 8 p.m., the evening's program began with a presentation about the museum's new wing. The lights dimmed, and a large screen descended from the ceiling. The museum director stepped to the podium to introduce a slideshow of the project's progress. I activated Pete's device. Instead of architectural photos, the screen filled with text messages between Eliza and Craig. Their most intimate conversations, their mockery of me, their detailed plans for their weekend getaways, all displayed in 48-point font for 300 of Seattle's most influential people to read. The ballroom fell silent as people read Craig's message. "Can't wait to get you alone this weekend. Your husband has no idea what he's missing. You're incredible in bed." Eliza's response appeared next. "Grant's so boring. I fake everything with him. You make me feel like a real woman." Gasps echoed through the crowd. I saw Eliza's face go white as she realized what was happening. Craig was frantically looking around, as if he could find the source of the technical malfunction and stop it. But the messages kept coming, each one more damaging than the last. Their discussion of my finances, their plans to manipulate divorce proceedings, Craig's admission that he'd done this to other married women. The final message was the most devastating. I've moved $200,000 from our accounts to yours. Grant will never find out until it's too late. By the time the divorce is final, we'll be set for life. The museum director was frantically trying to regain control of the presentation system, but Pete's device was more sophisticated than their security. The messages continued scrolling as Eliza stood frozen in the spotlight of social destruction. Craig made a run for the exit, pushing through the crowd of stunned onlookers. Security guards moved to intercept him, and in his panic, he shoved an elderly board member to the ground. The woman's scream cut through the murmur of shocked conversations. "Call 911!" someone shouted. "Mrs. Patterson is hurt!" Craig was tackled by two security guards and held on the ground while police were called. Eliza tried to follow him but found herself surrounded by people she'd considered friends, all staring at her with disgust and disbelief. "Eliza," said Margaret Winters, the president of the real estate board, "we need to talk. Immediately." I slipped out during the chaos, my work complete. By morning, the story would be all over Seattle's social media. Eliza's real estate career was finished, Craig was facing assault charges, and their relationship was exposed as the sordid manipulation it had always been. My phone was buzzing with calls and texts, but I ignored them all. I drove home through the rain, feeling a strange sense of peace for the first time in months. The house was dark and quiet when I arrived. I poured myself a scotch and sat in my living room, listening to the storm outside. Everything Eliza had built, her career, her reputation, her social circle, was gone. Craig would likely flee the city once he made bail, leaving her alone to face the consequences of their actions. At midnight, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Eliza standing on my porch, soaked from the rain and shivering. She looked broken, defeated, nothing like the confident woman who'd walked out on our marriage. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Grant, please. I have nowhere else to go." "You made your choice, Eliza. Live with it." "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm truly sorry. I lost my mind, I lost myself, and I destroyed everything good in my life. You destroyed everything good in both our lives." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "The real estate board suspended my license. My clients are demanding refunds. The bank froze my accounts because of the money I moved. I have nothing left. You have Craig. Craig's gone. He left town an hour after making bail. He took everything. The money I gave him, the jewelry, even my car. He was using me the whole time. I felt no satisfaction in her pain, only a deep sadness for what we'd both lost. What did you expect, Eliza? You chose a con artist over your husband. You chose excitement over stability. You chose to destroy 15 years of marriage for a few months of cheap thrills. I know I made terrible choices, but Grant, we can start over. We can rebuild. No, we can't. You didn't just cheat on me, you tried to destroy me. You planned to paint me as abusive and unstable. You stole our money to fund your affair. You turned our friends against me and tried to ruin my reputation. I was confused and angry and you were calculating and cruel. There's a difference. She stood there for a long moment, rain dripping from her hair onto my doorstep. So this is it? 15 years of marriage ends like this? 15 years of marriage ended the day you decided I wasn't enough for you. Everything since then has just been cleanup. I closed the door and turned off the porch light. Through the window, I watched her walk back to the taxi waiting in the driveway. She got in without looking back, and the car disappeared into the night. The next morning brought a call from Margaret Winters. The real estate board had completed their emergency investigation and found evidence of client fund misappropriation. Eliza was facing criminal charges in addition to the loss of her license. "I'm sorry you had to go through this, Grant," Margaret said. "We had no idea what kind of person she really was." "Neither did I admitted. Pete stopped by that afternoon with final reports on Craig's activities. The man had fled to Mexico with nearly $400,000 in stolen money from various victims. The FBI was involved now, but recovery was unlikely. "Your wife wasn't his first target," Pete said. "We found evidence of at least 6 other married women he scammed over the past 5 years. She was just the latest mark. She thought she was so smart playing games with her boring husband. She never realized she was the one being played." What happens now? I looked around the house that had been our home for 10 years. Every room held memories of better times, but those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now. Now I start over. New house, new life, new everything. The divorce will be finalized in a few months, and then I can put all of this behind me. Any regrets about how you handled it? I considered the question carefully. I regret that it came to this. I regret that she forced me to become someone I never wanted to be. But no, I don't regret defending myself against people who were trying to destroy me. 6 months later, I was living in a downtown condo with a view of Elliott Bay. The divorce was final, and I'd recovered most of the stolen money through insurance and legal proceedings. Eliza had pleaded guilty to embezzlement and received probation plus restitution requirements that would keep her broke for years. I never saw Craig again, but news reports indicated he'd been arrested in Cabo and was fighting extradition. His victims were numerous, and his legal troubles were just beginning. One evening, as I was walking home from work, I saw a familiar figure sitting on a bench near Pike Place Market. Eliza looked older, thinner, wearing clothes from Target instead of designer boutiques. She was reading a paperback book and eating what looked like a convenience store sandwich. Our eyes met for a moment across the busy street. She raised her hand in a tentative wave, but I looked away and kept walking. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. That night, I stood on my balcony watching the sunset over Puget Sound. The rain had stopped for once, and the city sparkled in the golden light. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt genuinely happy. My phone buzzed with a text from a woman I'd met at a coffee shop the week before. Sarah was a teacher, divorced, with 2 kids, and a sense of humor that reminded me why I used to love making people laugh. "Still on for dinner tomorrow?" she'd written. "Absolutely," I replied, looking forward to it. I'd learned something important over the past year. Boring and predictable weren't character flaws. They were signs of stability, reliability, and integrity. Eliza had thrown all of that away for excitement and passion, and it had cost her everything. But I was still here, still standing, still capable of building something new and better. The storm had passed, and I was ready for whatever came next. As I headed back inside, I thought about the man I'd become during those dark months of revenge and revelation. I'd discovered reserves of strength and cunning I never knew I possessed. I'd learned that even the quietest people have limits, and that crossing those limits comes with consequences. Eliza had wanted fireworks. Instead, she'd gotten a controlled demolition of everything she'd worked to build. And in the end, the boring, predictable husband she'd tried to destroy was the only one left standing in the ruins of their shared life. I closed the balcony door and smiled. Tomorrow was a new day, and for the first time in years, I was genuinely excited to see what it would bring. Ring, 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 ring.